Hey everybody, so in my last video we took a look at this Clue Master Detective game which has recently been reissued. If you didn't watch that video, make sure you go take a look at it. But one thing I wanted to share with you is its companion. Now this is the Super Cluedo version of the game. It's virtually identical in gameplay aspects. The only difference would be pretty much the artwork. And I thought that we would take a look at this together. Maybe compare it to the American version and see what you think. Now, as I was going through my website, theartofmurder.com, where you can see my whole Clue collection, well, a lot of it anyway, it needs a lot of updating still. Actually, as I was looking over my webpage for this Super Cluedo, it jogged my memory that I actually had another version of this exact same Super Cluedo as well. It's a German version. So the original Clue Master Detective came out in 1988. Then there was this German edition that came out around 2001, and then it was followed up by a UK version in 2006. So there are a little bit of slight variations between the two. Primarily, it's descriptions. I'm not really going to focus on the German edition today. If you want to check that out, look at my website, theartofmurder.com. There's a page for it. And I've done rough translations on all of the cards and so forth, so you can get an idea of the slight variations if you're interested. Now, one thing that I thought might be worthy to point out is simply that the German version takes place in the French Riviera, and the victim is a count. Whereas when we read the back of the Super Cluedo box, it gives us a slightly different scenario, and I thought I'd read that to you here. It says basically, under the heat of the Mediterranean sun, a terrible crime has been committed. Dr. Black is dead, murdered by one of his 10 so-called friends he had invited to stay in his luxury beach villa. Who could have committed such a wicked deed? The doctor was found in the cellar, but where he was taken from there and what weapon could have been used? Where was he taken from there and what weapon could have been used? So, anyway, you may recall, if you watched my last video, that the American version has Mr. Body murdered in his country estate. So here, the obvious difference with Super Cluedo is Dr. Black is our victim. And he is somewhere in the Mediterranean. So I'm going to bring the camera in. Let's go ahead and compare how Mr. Body's country estate compares to Dr. Black's beach villa. All right, here we have the cover of the box. As you can see, we definitely have some more stylish looking, perhaps more European looking suspects. Here on the side, we have the Telegraph, noting that we have 10 suspects, and it's kind of interesting. You see this little artwork right here? It is a different depiction of this brown character, and you actually see this version of this clue card in the Passport to Murder game, which we'll review in a future episode. So stay tuned for that. That's kind of interesting. One other thing you might notice as I show you the German box here is we have a strange looking photograph here in the corner of the newspaper. That's, I think, the only difference of the different covers, aside from the language differences. And I have no idea who that is. Here on the back of the box, we just see a family playing the game. But let's go ahead and open it up and take a look at the inside. Here, when we open up the cover, you can see some of the suspects in a different pose in a group setting. Now, interestingly, if I show you here the box cover again, you can see perhaps the Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet versions there are the same, but the other suspects are in different poses. And you're going to notice, actually, some of these are from the Passport to Murder game as well, that we're going to see a little bit later. The instruction booklet. This one doesn't have all of the detail that the American version has. There's no history of the suspects or the game. We have some playing cards. We're going to go over these here a little closer in a moment. The playing pieces are wooden again, so these are very reminiscent of the Master Detective version, the American version, but the white dies are a little bit disappointing. But these are the same weapon tokens as well. The notepad here leaves you ample room for note-taking on the side, which is fairly nice. And the solution envelope. Let's go ahead and take a look at the board. Here's an overhead shot of the mansion. Gameplay again starts in here is the hall. Now the hall is actually called the cloakroom in the American versions. The exterior rooms consist of the garden, the fountain, the gazebo, and the stables. Inside we have the drawing room, the dining room, the kitchen, the library, billiard room, study, conservatory, and lounge. Let's look at these rooms again and compare them to the US version. Again, on the right here, we have the gazebo from the UK, on the left from America. The fountain is a little less impressive. It's lacking the turtles and the fish. The garden and the courtyard are fairly similar. The libraries, the drawing rooms, the dining rooms, the hall versus the cloakroom, the billiard rooms, the studio versus the study, kitchens, trophy room versus the lounge, the carriage house versus the stables, and everyone's favorite conservatory. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the suspects. Now, I have put their German cards behind the UK cards, so you can kind of see a little bit of the difference in the names. For instance, here we have Miss Scarlet and Fräulein Gloria, Colonel Mustard, Mrs. White, Reverend Green, Mrs. Peacock, Professor Plum. We also have Madame Mystique, Mr. Death, Miss Peach, and Inspector Gray. In the realm of weapons, we have the dagger, candlestick, revolver, rope, lead pipe, spanner, the horseshoe, and the poison. As for the rooms, we have several familiar rooms in this version. The lounge, dining room, kitchen, conservatory, billiard room, library, and study. New, we have the drawing room, the stables, the fountain, the garden, and the gazebo. Here you can see the suspects in comparison to the originals. And the weapons. And the room cards. All right, so tell me, who done it better? Was it the American version or was it the UK version? I've got to tell you, it's kind of a toss-up for me. I mean, I do not like the UK version board quite as much. I think it's a little plain. The American version just seems more of that, country house murder mystery. It seems very elegant. This board seems a bit utilitarian almost. But I do think that they far exceeded the card quality. Well, that's not even true. I mean, I kind of like the suspect cards of the UK version. I think the more cartoony look sort of fits with the rest of the game elements a little bit more, whereas the American version with more almost realistic portraits doesn't quite go with the rest of the game elements, even though I absolutely love them, don't get me wrong. But the weapon cards I thought were far better with this new super Cluedo version. The rooms, again, I got to give it back to the American version. The American version had kind of those little close-up bits of each room, whereas the UK version just showed the room itself. There's no kind of creativity in that, so that's a shame. And there are kind of a few little errors on the board I didn't quite point out as we were going over it. Like, for instance, in the hall, you're going to have to rewind and take another look at this. But it actually shows stairs going down, and there's a door on the bottom level, and then there are doors on the top level, but they both kind of sort of MC Escher-esque come out at the same playing level. Anyway, take a look again, see if you can see what I mean. And there's just some other issues that bother me too, like they've incorporated a lounge. Clearly they wanted to take out the trophy room, which in the English country manor sense, I think originally should have been like, a big game hunter's trophy room, even though they kind of cheaped out and put like award trophies in there. So they sort of eliminated that in this version. But then they've made it this little tiny little lounge with two little chairs. It doesn't make sense. So overall, the board has problems. I can see, they wanted to recreate it, do it, themselves, but little errors kind of bother me. But look at these suspects. I mean, aside from Miss Scarlet being just a little bit busty, Colonel Mustard seems kind of young for his position, but his little chiseled good looks. I mean, these suspects are very unique and fun. So I can see how we can really get to know these guys and love them just as well as the originals. So anyway, that's it. Let me know what you think. Which one was better in your opinion? And that's it, I guess. Hope you enjoyed this video. We're going to take a look at more of my Clue collection coming up. So until then, guys, thanks for watching. Take care. Play to win.